Everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays the stories that I like to bring to you. I'm also over on the TikTok, which is Jess Rose 5472. You could join my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jess Rose 5472. You could like, or you could comment, or you subscribe. You could do any of the above, or you don't need to do any of them. You could just watch, and I'd really appreciate that just as much. So now that I've got all that out the way, I'm going to start this evening's story, which is the Devastating Samiah Downing Story. Okay, so we will begin. Yeah, we are. Okay, so we've got Samiah Christine Cornell Downing, born on the 14th of February 2008 in California. It's an American story. Mum Monicka Shania Downing. Yeah, Shania, sorry. My goodness. Monicka Shania Downing and her dad, Ronald Dean Greer Jr. Okay. She has got a couple of siblings. Little Samiah has. She's got a younger half brother and a younger half sister. Okay. Now, Monicka was 17 when she welcomed this beautiful little girl into the world with Ronald. Ronald was 16, very, very young couple, okay? And when I say couple, don't think they were together very long, if they were ever an official couple to begin with. But if they were, it certainly wasn't a long-standing relationship, okay? Now, little Samiah, she was nicknamed Peanut by, I've heard it was a granddad, I've heard it was a great-granddad. Okay, but she was nicknamed Peanut. She had a few little nicknames, bless her. Beautiful little girl. You have a look online. Absolutely gorgeous little girl. Quite shy. But she had these big dimples every time she smiled. Just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous little girl. Now, as I mentioned, her granddad, now I believe it's Monica's dad, but in some sources it says great-granddad. But his name's Christopher. Okay, he doted on her and she'd call him Papa. Okay, because Ronald, obviously her dad, as I've said, him and Monicka weren't together very long, and he kind of disappears. He kind of goes off the scene. All right, he gets involved in some crime. I think there was 3 misdemeanors and 1 felony. He pleads guilty to the misdemeanors, and the felonies dropped. All of this is going on over the next couple of years. Okay, so as I've said, even though she didn't see him, and this is what was going on with him, apparently Ronald was a very intelligent young man. He was doing very well at school. I don't know why crime got him. I don't know. I genuinely don't. But it seemed to, rather than him taking one path in life, he took the other. You know, he was smoking weed, drinking, that kind of stuff. And he just went downhill. And it is a shame because from the sounds of it and his family, he could have had a really, really positive future, this young man. But yeah, you're about to see that doesn't happen. All right. Now, when Ronald turned 18, okay, in 2010, he begins a relationship with Bianca Stanch, I believe, who's 16. These are very young kids getting together in full-blown relationships, okay? Now, early 2011, Ronald and Bianca, they announced that they're having a little girl. Now, I've read that he was already calling his baby mama before she was even pregnant. Odd, I don't know. But, like I say, 2011, they announced that they're having this little girl, and which will be Samiah's half-sister, okay? Now, even though he hardly saw Samiah, he would regularly post on Facebook, okay, about his new family. You know, there was a picture of the ultrasound as well, and he's got a little girl he's got one. And yet it's all about, I don't even believe it's all about the new baby. I think it's all about the new girlfriend. I think that's more what it's about. This, well, I say new girlfriend because in February of 2011, they get Facebook married. I didn't know that was a thing. I genuinely didn't. I knew people changed their names to their partner's surname. But I didn't know that it crossed over to Facebook married. So bizarre to me. Well, but Bianca changes her surname to Greer, and it's very official. Okay. Now their little girl is born in October of 2011, and they move in together in December of 2011. Now it said that with all of this whirlwind relationship going on, where he's now 20, I believe, and he's a dad of 2. His mum wasn't happy about it. It doesn't appear. There's comments on the Facebook post that he puts up. It's not just him putting them up. Bianca puts them up as well. A lot of the posts are all about wake and bake, like the amount of weed they smoke and alcohol, and they're very immature posts, really, for new parents. It's just very bizarre. And his mum's not happy. She's basically like, find a new mum. You know, you're embarrassing the family. She wasn't happy about this at all. She's like, you know, you've got one child that you're not providing for, you don't see, and now you've gone head first into another family. I understand. I do understand why she was frustrated. I do get that. Okay. Now the apartment Ronald and Bianca moved into, it wasn't far from where Monicka lived with Samiah. Okay. So Monicka, who worked full time, okay, she thought it would be a good idea, now that they were living nearby, now that they looked like they were settling down, Ronald had got a job by now, obviously Bianca was at home looking after the new baby. Monicka herself had another child by then herself, okay, which would be Samiah's younger brother, half brother. So remember I said she's got a younger half sister, half brother. So Monica's quite busy with this full-time job and everything else. She realised Ronald's working, they're living quite nearby, so she wants to begin a relationship between Samiah and Ronald. She wants her to know her dad. I suppose when she was very, very young, Samiah, it wasn't making a big difference, you know. Monica's dad or granddad was involved in Samiah's life, but now she's getting a little bit older, she's a toddler, you know, she wants her to have a relationship with her dad, okay? And it seemed all okay. It seemed like he'd settled down, like they've got a place, they've got this new baby, he's working, it all looks quite positive, all right? Now, Samiah, when she'd go and visit them, she really enjoyed it. She liked going to visit Ronald and Bianca. Well, her dad, I'm going to put my fingers up, her dad and Bianca. Now, she was nearly 4 at this time, and she seemed to really like Bianca as well. She did. She'd come back talking about it. It all seemed very positive, right? Now, we get to February of 2012, and it's Samiah's 4th birthday. And you see there's a post on Facebook from Bianca just basically saying happy birthday to her other daughter, spell OTHAA, just throwing that out there, you know. But anyway, to her other daughter, she said that they're not going to see her on her actual birthday, but you know, they'll see her soon. It's quite a sweet post that she puts up. And when we get to April of 2012, now as I've said, Monica's working full time. I don't know. I've got to be honest. I don't know about the decision she made, and I've tried finding out to see if there was anything more to it. maybe Monicka was struggling, or I don't know, maybe she didn't have anywhere to live, but I haven't heard any of that. But for whatever reason, it was decided between Monicka and Ronald that Samiah would stay with him full time, with Bianca and the new baby. Now, I'm presuming it's because Ronald was working, Monica's working, and Bianca is at home. She's at home full time. Now, Samiah's young, and she's not Bianca's child. She's got a newborn. You know, I can't imagine that's going to be easy, but everyone agreed to it. You know, Samiah moves in, and at first, it all seems to be going well. Monicka can still see her anytime she wants, of course. And it all seems to be a positive thing. Okay. By July 2012, though, so not long, 4 months, you know, not long at all, the arranged visits going back to Monicka start to slow down. To the point where Ronald and Bianca actually move home. They move home more than once. Monicka doesn't know where they're living. His own mom doesn't know where they've moved. She can call them, and she does still get to see Samiah, but it just starts to get fewer and fewer. Oh my God, put your teeth back in, Jessica, again. The visits become fewer and fewer as the time's going on. It's very suspicious, and I can't imagine what Monicka must have been thinking at that time. I just can't. It's happened quick, but it only have to happen one time, and I'm losing my mind. The police are getting involved, and all bets are off. Child's coming back, but again, like I say, I don't know her circumstances 100%. Doesn't quite make sense to me that she's had this child till she's 4, and then all of a sudden custody's kind of given to the dad for the most part of the week. I just find it a bit strange. Okay, now we get to September 2012, and Samiah is enrolled in preschool. Okay, so they're doing what they should be doing. But on the 2nd of October 2012, so a couple of weeks into preschool, Samiah turns up with a black eye. Okay, and Samiah tells the teacher that it was Bianca that did it with a belt. How much force do you have to put behind hitting someone with a belt to cause a black eye? Now, when Bianca comes in to collect little Samiah, and she's obviously questioned, she says, no, it was Samiah's little brother, a half-brother, Monica's son. And that's what happened. She's got confused. She hasn't seen her half-brother in months. She hasn't seen Monicka in months. What are you talking about? But the preschool don't know that. So they take her word for it face to face. But, okay, the teachers do make a report to child services. Even though they take her at face value, they know they're like, if she's only 4, and obviously it's a younger brother, how does he do that? How does that happen? And I love that they did listen to Samiah, because young kids, they can exaggerate, they can elaborate on things. I understand that for people in those roles, it must be hard trying to distinguish between, is a child exaggerating a situation, is a parent lying straight to your face? But you've got to believe the child. You have to. Yeah, that's got to be your first reaction. And then you pass it on to the authorities, and then you allow them to deal with it. You don't take it upon yourself. And I'm glad they didn't, because, as I said, they make the report to child services. But, oh God, don't get me started. It's San Bernardino in California, Child and Family Services, the CFS they're called, they're an absolute nightmare. A nightmare. There was a lot of gross, around this time, there's a lot of gross negligence going on. I heard very quickly that within that child services around that time, there was a worker who'd gone round to a house, walked into the house. There should have been 5 children in this particular house. This has got nothing to do with the story I'm talking about now. It's just regarding to the child services that Samiah's preschool had reported her black eye to. And one of the workers who'd been looking after a particular family, as I said, who had 5 children, when they went round to the house, which was a complete hole, they walk in, there is a dead baby underneath the dining room table. And the other 4 kids are all in a really bad way. And nothing's done. Nothing's done. The baby under the table? No. Kids with marks all over them? No. Nothing done. And it was said that whereas a social worker should have between 15 and 20 children to look after cases to deal with, these social workers were having up to 300 children, 300 to 500, I read, children to deal with. And they just couldn't keep up because social workers were just leaving. They weren't staying in the job. They weren't doing the job. There was negligent social workers. It was just a complete and utter mess at that time. So, even though the preschool did report what had gone on, there was a social worker involved. She did go around to see Bianca and Ronald and Samiah at the house. And Samiah still had the black eye, but she saw that the house looked okay. You know, Bianca fobbed her off a little bit. So she sort of wrote down and she was like, I'll go back and see her in a week or two. It didn't happen. All right. So that's what happened with that report. Now we get to November of 2012. Bianca's cousin moves in. His name is Rayshawn Stanch. He's 26, okay? Now, Rayshawn is legally blind. He has got learning difficulties, but he also has a criminal record. One of the charges, I mean, some of them were quite violent, and some of them was a crime against a child. So, not exactly the ideal housemate you want moving in, okay? So then we get up to the 27th of December 2012. Now, remember, little Samiah moved in with them in April. So we have April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 8 months, all it's been, okay? Just so you can follow the timeline, all right? She's still age 4. She's still a little 4-year-old, okay? And a tip to police comes in. Now, the tip was actually called in by Rayshawn. Remember I said Bianca's cousin. It's Rayshawn's sister and her boyfriend called this tip in, okay? And basically the call is to say there's something wrong with Samiah, all right? And the police go out and they look, and they end up pulling Ronald over in his car. And when they pull him over, there's only him and the little girl, Samiah's little half sister, in the car. I believe her initial begins with K, but that's all that's in the car. And he tries to say, oh, Samiah's at her mum's, and they're like, no, she's not. No, she's not at her mum's at all. You know, so the police follow him back to the new home, apartment, I believe, they're living at. And when they get there, they go in and they search the apartment. They have a look around. Samiah's not there. But what they noticed when they're pointed towards what would be Samiah's bedroom, they noticed there's a thick lock on the outside of the door. How many times do we come across stories like this? What is it with these locks on the outside of the door? It's literally like a 101 class, isn't it? In what to do or what not to do, should I say. But for these so-called parents, so it's literally like a list they tick off, isn't it? First one's get a lock for the door, let's go. So they notice the lock on the bedroom door. Ronald keeps changing the stories of where Samiah is. I mean, if you don't know in your first answer, prison, let's go. Because how can you change stories? What are you talking about? Bianca also, she's at it as well. She starts saying that Samiah's with family members. Then she starts looking at Ray Sean, her cousin, and she's like, wow, if she's not with these family members, now let's remember she was for the most part in charge of Samiah. But she's like, if she's not with the family members, then Ray Sean's done something to her. He's done something to her. I mean, talk about giving away your age. If I hadn't told you their ages, I'm pretty sure you could have guessed by now. Now, the police begin searching this beautiful little girl. And she genuinely is. Just a stunning looking little girl. 4 years old. Now, in the tip that they'd got, the Mojave Desert was mentioned. Okay. So, the police go out to the Mojave Desert to look because this was mentioned in the tip that was called in. And quite quickly, they see, I'm presuming, what must have looked like a shallow grave, because they quickly find this shallow grave. And when they dig down not far, they see a princess sleeping bag. And when they open it, there's the deceased body of little Samiah Downing. She was 4 years old. 4 years old. Happiest little girl in the world. And then 8 months. 8 months with these cretins. And she's been buried in the desert. I mean, you only ever hear about that with gangsters, don't you? Buried in the desert or the sea. So, she was tiny. It's just such a shame. Now, Ronald, Bianca, and Ray Sean were all arrested, okay? And an autopsy is done of little Samiah, okay? Now, her cause of death was actually severe dehydration, okay? And her manner of death was obviously homicide, okay? Now, the severe dehydration, it was said that she, from what they could be, even though she was in the desert, okay, and she had been there and she had been deceased for a little while, because the desert night was so cold, they were able to find out a lot of what had happened to this little girl, okay, and they could tell that she'd gone from between 24 to 48 hours without any water at all right? And it seemed that this had been an ongoing thing. And it was said that she'd actually, oh God, I've got something in my eye, sorry. It was said that she'd actually died on the 15th of December 2012. Oh, it's just awful. 10 days to Christmas. You know, this was 12 days before the tip came in. So as I said, she was out in the desert, but because of the cold nights, they could basically see what had happened. And she had wounds from head to toe. This little girl did. She had 10 to 20 U-shaped injuries, and it was said this was from a looped electrical cord. So it had been looped and she was whipped with it. There was also just as many welts on her body, which would appear from a bout. Okay. These were, I mean, she was marked on her back, on her chest, on her legs and her arms, even her face. She whipped her face. She had blunt force injury to her forehead. She had burns all down her back, causing her skin to split and slip. She was malnourished. Well, again, there's that child abuse 101, isn't it? Let's stop feeding, lock her in a room, and no food. In June of 2012, so not even a full 6 months previous, she was in the 50th percentile of what weight she should be. So right dead set in the middle. She was perfect. In December of 2012, she was down to the 5th percentile. 5th. So not just severely dehydrated, she was severely malnourished. And the coroner said that it was actually the dehydration that had killed her, and they even gave her enough water throughout those couple of days, she might have been able to survive. Her body might have been able to repair itself from the injuries she had. Maybe. They're not sure, but maybe. But the dehydration, that was what actually killed her. And I've heard dying of dehydration is supposed to be horrific. It's supposed to be a very, very painful day. And she was 4. Now, Rayshawn cracked first and told police what had happened, what had actually happened. And he said Bianca absolutely hated Samiah. So that Facebook post on her birthday, like, you know, my other daughter, what? I wonder, did she feel that way about her when she was just visiting for like a night or a few hours? But then when it was permanent, I don't know. Did she always hate her? Hate's a strong word. And I don't know how you can use the word hate in reference to a 4-year-old little child. But apparently she did. She hated her. And Bianca would beat her every single day. Every single day. And this is what Rayshawn saw. Now don't forget, he'd not long moved in. He hadn't been there long. When did I say he moved in? He moved in November. So he'd only moved in, 6 weeks previous? And that's what he saw. So this had been going on longer. She had the black eye back in October. It said that Ronald and Bianca would punish her. Her punishment was not to let her have water. How's that? How do you punish someone? By taking away something they need to live. She needs to live. That's not a punishment. That's a death sentence. They would tape her wrists and her ankles and lock her in a room. Other family members, I'm presuming maybe on Bianca's side. I'm not too sure if it was on Ronald's side. But they were aware of the abuse. And they came forward as witnesses for this case. So, how did you know? How did you? Maybe they, I don't know. I don't. Maybe they thought, maybe they didn't know she was being, not being given water and food. How much did they know? One said, actually, I'll tell you how much one did know. One says that Bianca had told them that one night Samiah had managed to get out of her room and she'd come out into the kitchen and she was so thirsty, looking around for something to drink. She's 4. She probably can't reach the taps. You know, we had a story the other week where the girl was drinking out the dog bowl. So obviously maybe there wasn't any pets in this house. She couldn't reach the taps. The little girl drank bleach. She drank bleach. She was so thirsty. There's no medical help gotten for her. She would have been in agony after that. There was no medical help got for this girl for anything I'm telling you. They'd starve her, as I've mentioned. And then we get to 13th of December 2012. And Bianca, she'd made shrimp for dinner, apparently. And Samiah couldn't eat it. Now, this child's been starved. So, either it was a reflex reaction where she genuinely just couldn't eat it. You know, there's just some foods that you can't physically eat. No matter how hungry you are, you know, you just have a visceral reaction to it. Or because she was dehydrating, because she was being starved, maybe she physically actually couldn't eat it even if she'd wanted to. But she couldn't eat it. So she's sent to bed, obviously with nothing. And she wasn't actually fed again. That was it. That was her last chance to eat, apparently. 14th of February 2012, so the next day, Bianca beats Samiah with the electrical cord and the belt that we know. We've seen the coroner had seen the marks of. I mean, whether it was just that one occasion or the marks were from previous occasions, because it said that she'd beat her every day. But she was ordered to stand in a corner for 8 hours. This child, she's not drinking, she's not eating, she's been beaten. And she's been made to stand just in a corner. She's so weak. She's struggling to stand up, let alone do anything. Oh my God. We get to the 15th of December 2012, so the day after that. Now remember, she hasn't eaten for 2 days. She hasn't been given any water. She must have been so weak. And Bianca beat her again with the belts, the electrical cords. Said that she'd loop the electrical cord. So she had like the double loop, the double wire. And she beat her with that. That's what the U-shaped marks were on her little body. And then Bianca, after she'd done this, she boils a pot of water. She boils a pot of water. And once it had boiled, she walks over and she pours it all down Samiah's back. Oh, you rotten cow. I can't imagine. I can't. Now, Rayshawn said Samiah was really weak. Was she? Now, it said that Rayshawn didn't lay a hand on this child, but for 6 weeks you watched her slowly murdered. You watched that. And he said she went really weak, and Bianca and Ronald, they didn't do anything. They didn't even attempt to get her any, wouldn't even give her any water. They just locked her in a room. And they went out for dinner. Yeah, we'll go out and have a date. My job here's done. And when they get back, she'd passed away. She died alone in that room in agony. From the burns, from the beating, from the dehydration. Oh, it's just awful. And then all three took part in burying her in the desert. And then came back. They had Christmas. These went through Christmas. Now, Rayshawn, he pled guilty to his part, which was being involved in the burial. And also agreed to testify at Ronald and Bianca's trial. Okay. So on the 2nd of January 2013, Bianca and Ronald are charged with murder and infliction of torture and child abuse. Okay. On the 9th of January 2013, Samiah was buried at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park. On her headstone, it's Mummy's bundle of love written on there. It's beautiful, but the family, I can't imagine how Monicka felt. I can't imagine how any of them felt. I just can't. They were devastated. Now Ronald and Bianca, well, they mess about constantly with the courts for years, changing lawyers, requesting second opinions. They just mess about for the next 9 years. Now, on the 4th of November 2014, Ray Shawn had pled guilty to cruelty to a child, and he pled guilty, as I've said. Now, their trial had been rescheduled over 20 times. 20. How is that allowed? I mean, they're locked up. They're not out. They're not out and about. But how's that? I don't understand how that's allowed. To the point where, when it gets to 2020, which we know what 2020 was, the governor of the states just said, look, the mayor, isn't it? Turned around and says, enough. It's going to be the first case when the courts open again. Okay, and it was. All right. So, Ronald's defense. Now, this is on the 8th of July 2020. The trial begins. Finally. Now, Ronald's defense was he didn't know anything about what was going on. He didn't know about the mistreatment of his little girl. Knew nothing about it. He basically said because he was at work and then he was stoned or he was drunk. He didn't know. Basically said he didn't notice any of her injuries ever, even when he was burying her in the desert. Well, what did she die of then, Ronald? How did she die if you didn't notice anything? How on earth did he think that would make a good defence? So why did you have to bury your daughter if you didn't know anything was wrong with her? And you didn't even notice anything when you were burying her? No sense to me whatsoever. But on the 12th of March 2021, nearly 9 years after they buried that little girl, both were sentenced to 32 years to life. Okay? So it would be a minimum of 32 years. Which still puts them in their 50s. If that, I'm not saying they'll get out, but I believe that's when they can apply for parole. I'm not too sure about that. I'm going to be honest. I'm not too sure about that at all. You know, they should. But like I say, there's nothing to say they will get parole. And when they do come up for parole and all of this comes forward and the lies they told and the messing about of 9 years where Monicka and her family couldn't put, I suppose they couldn't grieve properly. How can you grieve properly when you know you've got to go through that? And they put them through that for best part of a decade, which I think is an utter disgrace, and it never should have been allowed. I don't know how it was. Now, the San Bernardino CFS, Child and Family Services, they were investigated. There was a Fox 11 show that was like a investigation done on it, I suppose. So then there was an actual investigation put forward. Due to the numerous occasions of child abuse failures, okay, there was a grand jury convened. It looked like something was going to happen. But no, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. I mean, it's California. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm not saying it was the same child service department, wasn't California where Anthony Avalo was? Where Gabriel Fernandez was murdered. And many, many more. As I called out New York a couple of weeks ago, I'll call out California. We know it's worldwide. We know these issues are worldwide, unfortunately. But when you live in a country that have specific departments and government organisations which employ people in a certain job role, and their entire job role is to protect the children of that particular area, jurisdiction, I'm not too sure how to word it, and they fail time and time and time again. I don't know how, as I've said it many times, Samiah was murdered by her so-called dad and his girlfriend. That's who she was murdered by. Okay. Well, if we're to believe Ronald, he didn't actually raise a hand to her. He just knew what Bianca was doing. Okay. So he deserves it just as much as she does. So I'm not. We know it was them that did it. I'm just saying, there are people employed to step in. They were advised. They knew. And as for the child service worker who was supposed to come back out to see Samiah, she was due, and she went to come round. I think it was a couple of weeks later. Too late. You were too late. It said that, as I've said, nothing's changed. There's still 90 cases to each person, so it's kind of cut down a little bit. But there's 90 cases, 90 children instead of 15. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, there is a Facebook memorial page by Monicka and her family, which they update every birthday of Samiah's, all while the trial was going on as well. It's very sweet, and as I say, it's always updated. Her grandmother updates it. It's they're trying to keep her memory alive, which is beautiful. It's just very, very, very sad. It really, really is. For nothing. For again, I'm tired of saying it. For nothing. Because there was an immature child who had a child, and then has another child brought in who's no relation to her whatsoever, who she just automatically has a hatred for. And that was the word that was used. How do you hate a 4-year-old? Hate's such a strong word. Now, she had to have done what she did. Who walks up behind a 4-year-old and pours boiling hot water down their back when they're already dying? No matter how many of these stories I do, I'll just never get my head around it. I never, ever, ever. There's no understanding whatsoever. I just don't. When I research and I start looking into it, I try and, with regards to Bianca, was it that Samiah looked like her mum? Maybe she was jealous that Ronald was still having a relationship with Monicka, and that's why relationship as in the way of Samiah. Is that why he cut off Samiah seeing Monicka? And look, just give her back. You didn't see her for years at the beginning of her life. Just give her back. Say, it's not working. It's not working. Mrs. can't get on with it. I'm gonna try with this family here. Here we go. Sounds cold as you like, but surely that's better than allowing your new girlfriend to murder your child, and you to not give her food and water, the basics that we need to live, and you couldn't give her that. Utter disgrace. That was the devastating Samiah Downing story. Awful story. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. And yeah, I don't know what to say. It's just awful. They always are. They always are awful stories, but such a cute little girl as well. Just no need. She wouldn't have known what. She wouldn't have. She went from one life just into another. She wouldn't have known what hit her. Such a shame, but yes, thank you so much for joining me, and I will. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much again. Take care. Bye bye.